Hi, today I'm going to walk you through some tax calculations and we're going to work out how to find the deadweight loss of a tax, the proportion of the tax borne on the consumer and the proportion borne on the producer. So firstly, we're given the demand equation is price equals 300 minus Q, and then the supply equation of price equals 20 plus 3Q. And then we're told the government places a tax of $80 per unit. So the first thing to do is find the original equilibrium price and quantity, and we do this by equating the demand and the supply curves. So we can just solve this simultaneously. We use this demand curve here and equate it to this supply curve. So the demand curve is 300 minus Q. Sorry, I'll just edit that out. So we know that the demand curve is 300 minus Q, and we set that equal to the supply curve of 20 plus 3Q. So now we just rearrange this, so we get 280 equals 4Q. So Q equals 280 over 4. So the quantity is equal to 70 units. Now we know that the quantity is equal to 70 units, so now we want to work out the price. So we can sub this value of 70 units back into either the demand equation or the supply equation. We'll get the same answer. So let's go with the demand equation, and we know that's 300 minus Q, which is price. The price is equal to 300 minus Q. So we can sub in this 70 units to this Q. So we get price equals 300 minus 70. So price equals $230. Okay, so now we have the equilibrium quantity and the equilibrium price. So we can draw our first graph. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is draw the price and quantity axis. So we got price on the y-axis and quantity on the x-axis. So that's price and that's quantity. So we can draw the supply curve and the demand curve. So that's the equilibrium point right there. So we've worked out the equilibrium quantity first was 70 units, and the equilibrium price was $230. So now we know the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity originally. This is the original scenario, but then we're told we get a tax of $80 per unit. So let's work out that. So when we get a tax, it means that the supplier has to pay $80 off each unit sold back to the government. So that means the supplier is going to charge more because the supplier wants to make back its $80. So the new supply equation will just become price equals 20 plus the $80 of the tax because they want to earn their money back, and then plus the 3Q that was originally there. So this is the only bit that changes. This 3Q stays the same. So the new supply equation is price equals 100 plus 3Q. So that there is supply 2, the new supply equation. So we can just do the same step as right here and find the new equilibrium quantity and the new equilibrium price. So we know that price equals 100 plus 3Q, but the demand equation stays the same as 300 minus Q. So if we just solve them simultaneously again, we get the demand equation of 300 minus Q equal to the supply equation of 100 plus 3Q. So if we rearrange this, we get 200 is equal to 4Q. So Q is equal to 200 over 4, which is equal to 50. And you write units at the end just so people know what it is. So we know the quantity is 50 units, so what would be the price? So to find the price, we just use the same step as we done in here, and we just sub into one of these original equations. So this equation has changed to 100 plus 3Q, but the original demand one is the same. So it doesn't matter which one you substitute into, sorry. So originally we substituted it into the demand equation, 300 minus Q. So now let's substitute into the supply equation, which has changed to 100 plus 3Q. So I'll just move up here for the calculation bit. So we know that it's 50 units, so price is equal to 100 plus 3Q. So price is equal to 100 plus 3 times 50 units, because that's what Q equals. So we're just subbing Q equals 50 here. So that becomes price is equal to 100 plus 150. So price equals $250. So now we can have the second part of our graph. This is our new equilibrium price and new equilibrium quantity. So the equilibrium quantity has decreased and the equilibrium price has increased. So that means the supply curve must have shifted inwards. But this also makes sense, because if the suppliers now have to pay a tax, they're not going to want to supply as much because they earn less profits. So the supply is going to decrease, which means that it shifts inwards. So this is the new supply curve right here. We can label that S2. And this is the new equilibrium quantity, which is 50 units, and the new equilibrium price, which is $250. And then now the next step is to find what price the consumer pays and what price the producer pays. So the consumer always pays the equilibrium price, which is $250. So this is what the consumer pays, and the producer gets this $250 normally, but now it has to pay $80 due to the tax. So what the producer gets is $250 minus $80. So what the producer gets now is $170. So what we do is we take this point here on the original supply curve and we just extrapolate the line, and it becomes 170. So the producer gets I'll just mark this with pen. This is what the consumer pays. This is what the producer receives. So now we can find out the deadweight loss and the percentages. So if the consumer pays $250 and the producer receives $170, the proportion of the tax that each one has a burden of is just this shaded area here. So this is the proportion of the tax that the consumer pays, and this is the proportion that the producer pays. So the producer, if I'll just move it down a bit. Okay, so this is what the producer has as a burden of the tax. So this is the producer's burden. So the producer receives, the producer has to pay 230. The height there is 230 minus 170. So we go 230 minus 170. So, and over divided by the overall tax, which is $80, times by 100%. So just to clarify this is the proportion that the producer pays, this small rectangle here, and this area here is the total tax. So the percentage of this small rectangle of this would just be that height divided by that height. So it's 230 minus 170 divided by 80 times 100%, which is equal to, I'll just get the calculator out, 230 minus 170 divided by 80 times 100% is equal to 75%. So this is the producer's burden. So now let's find out I'll get a different colored pen. The consumer's burden. So we know that if the producer has to pay 75%, the consumer must pay 100 minus 75, which is 25%. But we'll just do a calculation, and if everything works out right, it should equal 25%. So we know that the percentage of the tax that the consumer pays will be 250 minus 230 divided by the value of the total tax, which is 80. So we have 250 minus 230 over 80 times 100%, just to get it in a percentage. So technically, since everything must equal 100% and 75% has gone to the producer, this should come out to be 25%. So let's see if we're right. 250 minus 230 over 80 times 100% is in fact 25%. So we know our calculations came out right, and that's the consumer's burden. So now the final thing to do is find the deadweight loss. So going back up here, the deadweight loss is this triangle here. I'll just get a different pen so it'll make it easier for you. This triangle here, that I've shaded in is a deadweight loss. So we know the formula to calculate the area of a triangle is equal to half times base times height. It's just to refresh you. So we can just apply that formula, and the area of that triangle will equal the value of the deadweight loss. I'll just use DWL for deadweight loss, and so that's equal to the formula half times base times height. So we know that the height of or let's call that the base and let's call that the height. So the equation will go half times the base, which is equal to that length there, which is 250 minus 170, times the height, which is that length there, which is 70 minus 50. Simplify it down to half times 250 minus 170, which is 80 times 70 minus 50, which is 20. So the value of our deadweight loss is half times 80 times 20, which is $800. So this is a deadweight loss to society. So what the deadweight loss means is that no one gets this. So the government doesn't get it because the government gets this area here, and but it doesn't get this area here, in this triangle here. The producer doesn't get it, or the consumer doesn't get it. So that's why we say taxes are sometimes have a negative effect on society, because we lose $800 that we would have otherwise got from not putting the tax on. And the deadweight loss, we always consider it towards society. So in the steps are, first you find the original equilibrium quantity and original equilibrium price. Then you find the new equilibrium price, new equilibrium quantity. Then you find the proportion borne by the consumer and the producer. You do the calculations to find the percentages, and then you calculate the deadweight loss. Thank you for listening.